Another episode of Stu Him Productions presents
J&M, Solve the World. I am James.
And I am Matt, and tonight we have a special guest with us. She is a longtime listener, first-time guest.
Right. Also my neighbor.
Also your neighbor. And we are going to discuss prepping. But, James.
Yes, sir.
Give us the intro.
The intro.
Oh, there we go. Let's try that again. You're going to introduce her?
Oh, yes. You said the intro, and I'm like, we done the intro. What are we talking about here?
An introduction.
Nope, this is my neighbor. You want me to use your last name? Or
No.
Okay. Kathy?
Kathy. Yep.
Okay, Kathy. And she is...
Not to be confused with your ex-wife, my sister, Kathy.
No.
Common name.
Common name. I-E or Y?
I.
I?
Oh.
Okay.
Just I.
Okay, cool. But Kathy is...
Somebody's getting fancy.
Been preparing for the end of the world, or not the end of the world, just shit to go sideways
Shit to go sideways.
for some time now.
Yeah.
About how many years you think you've been prepping?
Thomas is 41. He knows nothing else.
Ah, okay. So
And
over
longer
40
than that.
years.
Over 40 years.
Okay.
And I was raised learning skills that apply to prepping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to cook from scratch, how to sew, how to garden.
Right.
So,
Common skills that everybody should know.
yes. I wish more knew how to cook from scratch.
Right. How to actually bake a cake without Duncan Hines.
Yeah. It's work. It's work to get
Oh, yeah.
that.
I don't use Duncan Hines.
Use
Betty
Betty
Crocker.
Crocker.
Betty Crocker. Yeah.
I was going to say, I use Betty Crocker. It's one of those things, whatever your grandma used.
Right.
Oh, no. No. Let me rephrase that. My great-grandmother, of course, she was a house lady during the Depression.
No, okay.
And she, 100% made everything from scratch.
Right.
And I've said this before, but even 20 years after she had passed, I could walk into my great grandfather's house and still smell the fresh baked cookies and the cakes and everything. It was in the walls.
Right.
It was amazing.
So I see you brought some notes.
Yes, because I get kind of forgetful, and we are known to get off track.
No.
Never.
What about them Cardinals? I mean, what? No.
Somebody doesn't like that idea.
Nope.
I forget what I've got on this thing half the time, so...
You used to have labels on the old board.
Right, but now I've got the labels actually on the screen itself, so I don't have to guess. So please, wow, I don't have anything in Bank 3. Okay, so what's the number one thing that top of the list when it comes to preparing for
Whatever.
the zombie apocalypse,
Or even a power outage that lasts more than a couple hours. Or, because we've had stuff like that recently with the ice storm in 07.
I wouldn't necessarily call that recently.
How long were
Recent
you?
fucking enough. I don't ever want to see that shit again.
How long were you without power?
We were without power 2.5 days.
Okay.
Now, in Buffalo, where I work, they were without anywhere from a week to my brother, who lived in a suburb of Buffalo, they was out 14 days.
Well, and then if the person that told me this is reliable, and you know who I'm probably talking about, she said she was out 3.5 weeks. but she's also further down the line. I was told the house we bought was out for about a day.
Yeah. Like say we were out, and the only reason I know we was out 2.5 days because I'd shut my main breaker off in here and everything, and we went down to Mom's because she had a couple gas heaters on the wall, so we could halfway stay warm because after the ice storm, after it was over with, it got cold as shit. It
got
was like
cold.
4 degrees, you know. We took everything out of our refrigerators and our freezers and put it in big, like, trash barrels and set them outside, you know, just to keep them.
Good thinking.
First part of '07 or the end of
January
07?
of '07. Because we had a mini one in December of '06. Because it was bad enough that it canceled our shrine ceremonial. It was like the first part of December.
But the one in January was awful.
It was, I'm trying to remember, I think they said it was 22 counties in southwest Missouri that got hit. It basically looked like a tornado had went through and wiped out all the trees, but left all the houses. That's the best way I can describe it, because all the trees were fogged.
Oh,
I mean,
Mike and I lived south of Springfield between Nix and Ozark, and we were not without power for very long because we were suburban. But taking him to the airport and seeing all the damage, it just,
yeah, it was, I've never seen, I mean, I remember going outside and I'm going, I don't remember it being this dark. Because everybody's got a yard light, a pole light now. None of that was on. I could see cars on P Highway. I could see cars on 64 Highway that you can't see normally. Because I'm like, oh, there's a light. Oh, wait, it's moving. That's a car. Shit.
Yeah.
You know?
What got me about that ice storm is that we knew 7 to 10 days in advance we were going to be hit with some winter weather.
Right.
Winter weather is hard to predict as to what it's going to fall.
Yeah, depending on
So many
where the front is and the moisture and the whole 9 yards.
And the number of people that didn't have the wherewithal to go make sure they had enough groceries, that they maybe didn't have to cook.
Right.
I mean, it was shocking. I mean,
Well,
but
and how
then
many-
again, I'm a prepper.
And how many people, well, another reason we went down to Mom's is because she had a gas cook stove.
I have one now.
And, you know, we were all electric up here. So we went down there. It was kind of funny. Because the reason I found out we had power back was Mom's power line went from a pole out there by our barn now down to the house. Well, a limb had come down across it and pulled it loose. So I was like, well, shit, while the power's off, I'll get this hook back up, right? And I went to cutting with my chainsaw to cut the lines, and all of a sudden it quit, and I couldn't get it started. It was a little cheap Walmart chainsaw. I'm like, well, fuck. So I started yanking on this power line, and all of a sudden it went. I'm like, we got power. Fuck yeah. I mean, the spark didn't scare me. It startled me, but I'm like, we got fucking power. I was excited.
Yeah.
So I ran back up and I flipped my main breaker on. My power came on. I'm like, sweet. And my cats are laying there going, God damn, Dad, turn the heat on. You know?
Oh, of course, the cats had to complain.
Yeah. But then after that, and then I ended up having to pull the meter so I could hook her power back up to get her power back on. And then put the meter back. And then, of course, I called Southwest and said, hey, I had to cut your lock and pull the meter so I could get my power hooked back up. And then after that, we lost power sporadically for 4 or 5 days. It would go out for an hour or so, you know, but then it would come back on because they were fixing, because Southwest was really good about clearing out all the crap.
Yes.
Where Empire at the time was what serviced Buffalo, and their power lines went through the freaking trees, so they had a mess.
Now, Lawton and Springfield had that same problem. And everybody asked, well, why don't they bury the lines? Bedrock, and they're harder to maintain, and they're more expensive
Right.
to today to put in. And, you know, North Springfield is old. They have trees, and
Shut the mic because I'm not hearing her in my. Are you hearing her?
I'm hearing me.
Okay.
I'm hearing her because she's on this side.
Right.
But no, I
But yeah,
I turned it up some more.
that ice storm was a mess, and excuse me. Then afterwards, I was able to buy a log. After we moved here, we bought a log splitter. They bought it just for the ice storm, and then they decided to move to Hawaii. The 1 pound propane bottles, because that's what we used to cook on, is a propane camp stove.
The camp stoves. Yeah.
Because the place we were renting was all electric. But the number of things that people say, well, I'm not going to need this again. It's kind of,
Generator sales went out the roof.
if you could find one.
No, I mean once it all calmed down.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
used.
But then there's like a bunch of people had generators and like, oh shit, we're never gonna need this again, and so you could buy them cheap.
And you're going to need them. I mean, the wind and the storms they had in Springfield that took out so much power.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
Last summer here, because we put a generator in when we got our solar panels. We got them in a package deal. It's a whole house generator. And last summer, there was a couple times that it ran for half a day because storms that went through and knocked the power out. And, you know, our power, the way that our generator works is it'll go off and then the generator kicks in and everything comes back on. And I'd look up at Banda's or look down at Herb's and it's like, they ain't got no power. You know.
Yeah, they know where to go.
Yeah, exactly.
But
During this whole ice storm that you guys got in January of 07, of course, I was living I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and, you know, living in Clarksville, Tennessee. And it's not that far, you know, to be honest. You've got Missouri and then Kentucky. I was running PT in shorts and a t-shirt every day. Had I had my motorcycle down there at that time, I probably would have been out riding.
Right. Well, the problem with that ice storm was the day it started, it was raining. And it was like in the 50s.
Yep.
And the temp kept dropping.
Right.
And this was on a Friday, and I was at work, and the ground was saturated. It was just soaking wet because it had been raining for 2 or 3 days. But then I went out to my car like at 4 o'clock, and it was starting to freeze on the car. The pavement and everything was still wet, and when I told my boss, I'm like, well, I think I'm done for the day. And I headed home. Didn't have any problem getting home, but the temp kept dropping, but it kept raining.
Right.
Because the surface temperature was colder, but the layer above was still warm enough that it kept raining.
And then the ground was still warm.
Right, and that's why we just sat here and watched the trees and the power lines just keep growing and growing and growing and growing.
And then it got cold up there.
And then it started breaking. And then the next night, like I say, it was like 4 degrees. So, yeah, it was, I mean, luckily, because, and then Amanda, she was living over by Goodson. And they went to her dad's. And of course, Cody was a little terror at the time. Aiden was a baby. And he brought him over here because they had a limb that looked like it was ready to fall over their kitchen of their house. And he's like, you know how it is to tell Cody not to go in a room? So we're going to bring him over here for you guys. It's like, okay. So we end up spending the night out on the patio in front of that little gas deal. I'm still wearing Carhartt bibs and a jacket and everything, just, to survive. And we made a pallet for the kids on the floor and, had an old mattress and it was fun times.
The neighbors between us, they went up to his folks because they had, their daughter was baby, little tiny, because they didn't have power
Right.
And I don't think they had any. They had a wood stove. They've always had a wood stove. But yeah, they went up there. I think it was.
Well, see, Mom had a pellet stove,
Oh.
but they don't operate too well without electricity.
Yeah, I heard that.
The augers don't turn without electricity.
No, Mikey and I discussed that for about 1 minute, and decided I'm putting in a wood stove.
Yeah, I mean they're nice because of the convenience. You know, even if you can't lift a bag, you could. If you got somebody to bring it in there for you, you can scoop it out with a coffee can or whatever to get your bag into there. And the ash is small and minute for a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's like something like that will hold the ash that it burns in a day. So that's nice. But without power,
Yeah.
those pellets, in fact, they go out pretty quick because there's a little fan that keeps them going.
Yeah. My brother's got a fire pit that takes the pellets.
Yeah.
And yeah, same sort of thing. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, but
I've got a smoker grill that does that. Works real nice.
Oh yeah,
But yeah,
like
needs
a
power.
Traeger.
Yeah, with a Pit Boss.
Pit Boss, yeah. See, right now, if we had the ice storm now, I've got my big green egg. I've got my flat grill. You know, we're cooking. We're gonna be fine. You know.
And to address, what people should have done, many should have done, not all, when they knew this was coming, they needed to make sure they had food in the house that they could eat. That
Canned food.
canned food, you can, commercial canned food, you can open the can and eat it. You may like your vegetables cooked, but they're edible
Right.
and safe to eat.
Yeah, they're already
Straight out of the
basically
can.
cooked, but they're just not warm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have something to cook on. I mean, camp, those 2-burner camp stoves are not expensive, and neither are the 1-pound bottles. Is
Right.
there a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning? Very low.
Right.
Propane burns really cleanly,
Right.
but you can always crack a door,
Right.
and you're not burning it all day. Don't heat your house with your gas oven.
No.
That is carbon monoxide risk. It doesn't. It just.
And
It's not
space-
designed to do that.
And space heaters.
now not to cut you off, Kathy, but I will go ahead and throw this out there. One thing that I would not suggest to have in case of the storms or anything is MREs.
Yeah.
Reason being is because they kind of stop you up.
Ah.
Yeah, and then the moment you get any sort of
So-
real food,
Unless you got some prunes and stuff to go with them.
oh no,
No.
no.
I've heard it's
I,
worse than that.
I would just say don't do it.
Ah.
I mean, there are some portions of it, but an MRE is high calorie. And they're great for military because when you're eating those, you're burning a crap ton of calories.
Right.
So you need to have those high calories. But at the same time, yeah, it's going to stop you up. And then the moment you introduce regular food, you've heard the term shit in purple Twinkies? Yeah. Or shit in a gold brick?
Ah. Yeah.
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 It ain't gold,
Yeah.
but
It's a
by
brick.
God, it's a brick.
It's one of those
And
things.
then you got to go get your hemorrhoids checked out.
No. You just better hope you've got a case of dude wipes
There you go.
because you're going to be wiping.
It's one of those things that experienced preppers go, don't buy. Because people want to put them in their bug out bag or get home bag, or they want to carry them in their vehicle, or they want to have them on hand. And there's so many other better foods. I mean, you go to grocery store and Hormel has pre-cooked things that are shelf stable.
Right.
They're not horrible. They're not home cooking.
I mean, spam,
Spam.
vanini weenies.
Tuna. I mean, how
Tuna.
many? There
Oh,
all sorts
yeah.
of canned meats out there.
Canned meats, yeah.
Pouches.
Yeah, the pouches.
The pouches
A lot of
now,
people like
yeah.
the pouches now.
Yeah.
That you get flavored stuff. You
Canned chicken,
Oh yeah.
you know, and just canned chicken and
Yeah.
there's chicken salad a
Oh,
lot of times, you know. Just,
I've done that a lot. Taken like the big cans of cooked chicken when I'm doing like butter noodles, and I'll just add the chicken to it, and then I'm like, what vegetables do I have? Ooh, I've got peas.
Right.
Drain those, put it in there. What else do I got? But emergency, I would have an MRE. Like if you're broke down somewhere and you've got to go somewhere,
yeah.
yes, because you're going to need the caloric intake because you're going to need the energy. But to live off of,
No.
No.
there's a reason why in the Army and the Marine Corps, and I'm not going to talk about the Air Force or the Navy because
You weren't in those.
right. But there's a reason why when you're out in the field for like a week, you're only eating 2 MREs a day, but you're getting some sort of hot chow. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep you kind of stable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even
What's-
the guys that were in the invasion of Iraq, yeah, same sort of thing. I mean, the artillery guys were way ahead of the infantry guys, which they weren't supposed to be, but they had the better trucks, and they were those brand new trucks from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, didn't have the governors on them.
Uh-huh.
So they're doing about a $1.10 hauling a 155 howitzer or pulling the trailer with a 155 howitzer on it, and they're
Right.
just through the desert. But even then, those guys didn't have, they weren't eating MREs constantly.
So what other popular belief that you need is bogus? What other
things?
item, whether it be ammo or what?
Well, yeah, I'm not even getting into guns and ammo.
Okay.
That's you guys's.
Ah,
What was that?
Your phone,
It's not supposed to do that.
it's vibrating on the glass.
Oh well.
that's okay. We won't make you do the shot. It didn't ring out audibly.
No.
So
What other things?
popular myths.
Popular.
That
I didn't put that in here.
I stumped you.
You did, making me think, and brain doesn't always want to think. You really don't. I mean, you need to store water. I mean, we need at minimum a gallon a day of water to drink, to wash up, to clean dishes, to cook with. Don't store it in. You can buy those jugs of water at Walmart, and not ideal. Those jugs break down pretty quickly.
The plastics and
That plastic.
Yeah.
I store mine in 2-liter soda bottles with a little bleach. I have a cabinet in my kitchen, and it's basically kind of my prepper cabinet for. It's got water and stuff in it. When the power's out, I use paper plates. I don't want to wash any more dishes than I have to.
we do that as a norm anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Unless I have a big old fat ribeye and it's like, nah, it's going on the plate because we're gonna cut that. Yeah.
and I had a thought, and then you talked,
Oops, I'm sorry.
and you scared it away.
Hell, I even think with the
Paper plates. 'cause what-
tri-tip and the potatoes and peppers that we've done has still been on the paper, the fine china.
The
Fine
fine
china.
china.
Yeah.
Yes. If we have a pandemic, you don't need to buy up tons of toilet paper.
No, just get a bidet.
Yeah.
Us preppers laughed at that. It's kind of, we can understand buying toilet paper if you're close to out,
I'll get it later.
but people were buying up packages upon packages, and we're kind of going, why?
They bought up all the toilet paper and all the wipes baby wipes, dude wipes, whatever that was out there. You couldn't
And-
buy none of that stuff.
And it's
like,
kind of it's
it's
not
like
that
haven't y'all heard of a wash rag? Because
well,
we had water.
yeah, we had water, we had power. It wasn't likely to go out.
Yeah,
It wasn't a gastrointestinal virus, it was a respiratory virus.
right.
So why?
One of the funny things Johnny Dare was talking about, because they were all at home during the pandemic, but they had sent them all home with their home studios, and they were all on the show and everything. And he was like, I don't know why everybody's buying up all the damn toilet paper. I've had the same roll of toilet paper at my house for the last 6 months.
Is that a bidet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
he's got one of the heated ones, not to cut you off, right? He's got one of the heated ones, and in the guest bathroom is the toilet paper, and his girlfriend, I don't know if it still is, but she went by Sassy Von Fancy Pants. She got to where she loved his bidet as well, because it was warm water and the blow dryer.
See, because of our neighbor that lives in between us, Greg and Tracy, shout out, we now have bidets in our bathrooms.
I heard that.
Yeah. And, I like it.
I would have to have a heated one because our well water is damn cold.
It's not that cold.
It's not that cold?
No, because it sits in your water lines. So it's basically room temperature,
Okay.
unless you run it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But because I asked her about that, and Tracy said, well, I want to tell you something. She goes, when you got explosive diarrhea, that cool water feels good.
This is true.
I'm like, because I'd seen him, I'd heard on Rogan's podcast, he used to have Tushy and everything. And I looked them up, and they were like $79 for a cold water bidet. And Tracy was talking, because we was talking about Herb, he'd had his stroke. And she's like wondered if he would want one. And she goes, we got ours off of Amazon. They're like $26. And I'm like, really? She goes, I'll send you the link. She sent me the link. I'm like, well, oh shit. So I ordered 3 of them because I was going to put one in here also. But before I got it put on there, I talked to Linda, and I ended up putting it on in their master bath.
Okay.
So I got another one to put on in there. I just haven't got to it. So, but they're freaking great. It was like our buddies over in Buffalo said, they showed us the one they had. And he's like, yeah, I got friends that go, oh, I ain't using no damn bidet. That'll make you gay. He's like, son, if a cool stream of water hitting your butthole turns you gay, you were already gay.
Yeah, I'm kind of going.
So, but yeah, I had a roll of toilet paper in there when I first put mine on, and that was almost 2 months ago. I finished it off this morning blowing my nose because I do the bidet, and I got dude wipes. And I dry off with the dude wipe, and that way you get that minty smell. And
Oh yeah, you get that cool. You get that mint chill.
yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, that's the scent. So
they've got the stripper smell,
yeah,
which is was it cocoa butter and
yeah. So showed up for work Thursday at the job site, and apparently it stormed bad in Kansas City Thursday night or Wednesday night. I didn't hear shit.
You live in a basement,
Right. Well, that and I go to sleep to thunderstorms.
right?
No. It was Thursday night because it was Friday morning, and the 4 porta-johns that we have outside the work site, all over the parking lot, and they had just kind of like set them up, got them back into place, and I had to go. Luckily, I only had to pee, but I had to go really bad, and I jumped in the first one that was open. And it had poo all over the side. And I'm sitting there and I'm holding my breath because I can't breathe out of my mouth.
You don't want to breathe in your mouth either and taste it.
No. And reminded me a lot of Iraq. And I wish I had a fabric watch band so I could sit there and smell it like I did when I was in Iraq, and we would drive by the poo factory before going on to our fob. Yes, I'm sorry.
And one thing I recommend doing and I keep these under my bathroom cabinets, is laundry jugs full of water. So that and you pour them in the tank, don't pour them in the bowl because it doesn't work as well. So you can actually flush, because
Right.
those of us that have wells, if we lose power and we don't have a backup generator,
Right.
we have no water.
Right.
But now I know where I can get water. Here and the chicken barn.
And Herbs, they got a generator now too.
They got a generator now too.
Yep.
It's on my wish list, or battery for my solar. Take your pick.
Yeah.
I know which is cheaper.
Generator at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, because we got ours. They had batteries, but they said they got bought up on the coast as soon as they came in, and the price was just. It was almost as much as the solar panels themselves.
They're stupid expensive. The one, Sun Solar, yes, shameless plug, told me is I should be able to do my house, including the well, with one battery, 20 grand. And it's that's a big chunk of change. They do now have a bank that will finance just the battery. And you can get as much as a 30-year warranty on it, which, that's plenty long for me.
Well, that's plenty long for me. Because when I'm 88, I'm going to be like, fuck it.
I plan to live to be 100, okay?
Okay.
I have 39 years left.
There you go.
I'm looking forward to the old folks home.
It's like Herbie said
Because
one
the
time.
other old folks in the home are going to be Gen Xers, and
we're going to be rocking the Metallica
fuck
and
yeah.
Anthrax.
Slayer.
Yeah. Slayer.
Fucking first thing in the morning. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, and they're saying the same thing about the boomers. That they're entirely different than the previous generation.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
'Cause you got some credence going on in the nursing home. And
In the white room with black curtains.
Yeah.
I plan to live in my house until I die.
Little CCR. That's my hopes.
No, was that CCR? That was
No,
Cream.
I said a little CCR.
Oh, yeah,
And,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Did you hear that? Trying to get off the subject, not to be political, but at the 250th parade for the Army,
Yep.
they played "Fortunate Son." We listened to it, and I listened to it on Amazon, and I viewed the lyrics. Yeah, that's a war protest song.
that's what I was going to ask. Is they played a lot of things like Independence Day by Martina McBride, that's about abuse, and her burning her house down with her and her husband in it, however it happened. That's left to the imagination.
Okay. God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's a pro-American song by a draft dodger.
right.
True draft dodger. I mean,
He ran to Canada.
That's a draft dodger.
I mean, at least old
I mean,
Slick Willie
it's
had
not-
kind of an excuse. He was in college.
Which they didn't draft you
right,
if you were in college.
Oxford. So you weren't even in the country.
But yeah.
Of course, our current one had bone spurs. Got a doctor's demit.
Now, which, going back to like World War II, Sinatra and Dino, Dino had scoliosis, and Sinatra had a back problem, and
You could get out for flat feet back then.
right. Nowadays, there's waivers for everything, but there's still some medical issues that they won't do.
Well,
Like, I had a
I
kid-
think there's a difference between a draft
Yes.
and a volunteer.
Right.
If you're volunteering and you say, hey, I've got whatever issue, they can say, well, can you do this? You know, put you through a physical fitness test, whatever, or we'll give you a desk job. But if they're just drafting people, they're like, dude, I got asthma.
Yeah.
They're not going to take it. Yeah.
Well-
Right. And that's what a lot of people did is they would wait to get down there to the draft board and they would start going through the physical. The fat electrician talks about it all the time. He'll do all these quote unquote war heroes. And they're all bad eyesight, bad hearing, but they're the main character.
Or was
So-
15 years old and lied about their age.
Oh God. There was, God, I want to say he was 13 he was a Marine on Iwo Jima, earned the Medal of Honor, was jumping out of an airplane, and was a war hero before he was 18. And then they found out his real age, like at 17. And it's like, what are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, so he's got to wait until he's 18 to join, and he's going to go to boot camp, basic training, whatever, with a Medal of Honor and jump wings and everything. Right. You don't think that the drill sergeants aren't going to see that, or the drill instructors aren't going to see that and be like, you just go on there.
So we've kind of got off the topic. Kathy, you got some notes. You want to go through the highlights of your...
Well, the one thing, we've touched on this, is most preppers prep. We say we prep for Tuesday. The things that can and do happen all the time that cause you to not be able to live your regular life.
Right.
The news. Last winter there was some backup of traffic, I think back east, and people were stuck in their cars for 2 and 3 days.
That was a winter event, wasn't it? A big snow event?
Big snow event. I
Yeah.
forget exactly what it was. And it's kind of, you live in that part of the country, and I was raised in North Iowa. I had ditch clothes that stayed in my truck. And I've driven SUV, 4-wheel drive SUVs for since Thomas was like 4. You have a shovel, you have some water, you have some food, you have a coffee can and toilet paper.
Right.
It's it's just how you deal with it, and you pay attention to the weather. Blankets. I have a blanket. I've never even unwrapped it. I have a blanket in my truck now.
Right. Well, it's like when Herb and Linda lived in Las Vegas. They always kept a case of water. And then if you're traveling out there in the wintertime, like back to here, going across New Mexico and stuff,
Yeah.
they always recommended you have warm clothes and you have a candle in your vehicle in case your vehicle dies for some reason. That candle, you'll have to crack your windows a little bit, but that candle sitting on
keep
your
you warm.
dash will keep you warm, keep you from freezing to death. Ain't gonna keep you warm, but it's gonna keep you from freezing to death.
My dad loves to tell this story, and he said I saved his life when I was like 4 years old. I was out on the road with him, and we were running along, I think up in the Pacific Northwest or the Atlantic, around New England, someplace where it
Right.
was cold as shit.
Yeah.
And the diesel
Gelled
started
up.
gelling. And he bundled me up. We got a ride to the next station. He was able to get like a gallon of diesel. We got back to the truck. He had the hood open, and he was pouring the diesel in. And he said, had I not been able to stay on the gas and sit there and just crank that truck, we would have froze to death. And I'm like, I don't remember that.
That's
Salud.
But we've talked at length about the ice storm. That it happens. We've since then we had a real blizzard. It was. I mean, by definition, it was a blizzard. We got the 19 inches.
We couldn't get out for 4 days, and if it hadn't been for a neighbor that lived out on 64 that had a big tractor with the bucket on the front, we'd have been in there for more days.
Well, you have an icky driveway.
Well,
But now we've got equipment that can get us out now. We didn't at the time. I had an old case tractor and we had an old Ford tractor, and the Ford was high center and I couldn't get the case to start.
okay, December of '06, when I was here, when I got back from Iraq, and I had that 2-wheel drive Durango, and it's before you had the back patio roof on, because we were sitting in the hot tub that night, and it was snowing. And of course, I've got my arm hanging out of the hot tub because I'd just gotten a tattoo.
Right.
But I barely made it out of the driveway in my 2-wheel drive. When I was coming back to Kansas City in '16 after I bought my truck, it's normally, with the stop in St. Louis for gas, it's normally like a 9-hour trip from where I lived in Tennessee until I got to Kansas City. 4.5 hours to get to St. Louis. I'm on the west side of St. Louis on I-70. Everything is looking good. All of a sudden, it took me 8 hours to get from St. Louis to Columbia. I-70 was shut down.
Yep.
There were tractor trailers. That's when we had that really bad ice storm going across I-70. Tractor trailers were in the ditch and
Jackknifed across the highway. And
that's about the time that I started carrying a case of water in my truck. I've always got a hoodie, jacket, something like that. When I worked at the Treasury during, like right before and then during the pandemic, I wore shorts to work because I'm inside and I'm sweating my ass off. But I had the cold weather stuff and everything in my truck.
Your ditch clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like, just keep your tank full.
Yeah.
That's, because you never know when you're going to need to have your car idling for hours. If you're sitting there stuck and you're on a fucking quarter tank of gas, you're kind of fucked.
Yep.
As they like to say in some circles, you're sucking dick for beer money.
Right. I think that's a common misconception about the preppers. Everybody thinks y'all like just fucking crazy, end of the world thinking people, but it's just as common.
It's more
everyday stuff
Yeah,
that you need to think about.
There's places, there's been the derailment in Ohio, people were not allowed back in or they had to stay in their houses for a few days. Do you have food and water? I mean, they had power. They should have had water, but do you have food? Do you have something to do?
It's easy enough for like me, because I'm in town every day at work, to get into that mentality. I'll just pick up something for dinner. But if you do that all the time and all of a sudden you're stuck at home for 4 or 5 days, what do you have to eat? Well, Bugs, I guess we'll have a wabbit tonight.
I felt that we had a real bad ice storm in Tennessee around the Fort Campbell area in 2012. I mean, it shut the place down, and my driveway had a slight curve up, and I had a front-wheel drive car. I couldn't get out of my driveway. And I made it a point, I didn't keep junk food in my house. I just didn't have a lot of food in my house because, well, I spend 15, 16 hours a day at work.
Right.
On post. But luckily there's a grocery store like a block down from my house, and I had a buddy staying with me at that time, and we walked down, got a fuck ton of frozen pizzas and microwave popcorn, and
Well,
I
see,
mean, we looked like
that's all well and good if you
yeah.
live in town.
Yes.
But like us here,
Yeah.
our closest place we could get any kind of food at all is 9 miles away.
And that's Pittsburgh.
Pumpkin Center or Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know, at Pumpkin Center, you're
not getting much.
You're getting some spam and some vanini sausages and some chips.
Beef jerky.
And beer. And beef jerky.
Yeah.
And beer.
And talking about your driveway, that 2007 ice storm, Mikey's and my entertainment was we lived on a hill.
So you sit in the window and watch people slide?
And how much effort they made to get up the hill. Some made a serious effort. Some made it up the hill. They knew how to drive. I mean, they had better vehicles. A lot of them tried once and turned around and left. Now, I had called in sick to work in Iowa. Not sick, stuck. New Year's Eve, of course. Because I couldn't walk down my stairs safely, let alone, I mean, I could just see my truck backing out and sliding right across the road into the ditch. The road was gravel.
Yeah, but gravel gets slicker and shit when there's ice on it.
Yep, it does. The one nurse that would have been off if I could have made it to work wasn't happy because she called and said, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" Because it was New Year's Eve, and I said,
Right.
"I'm sure." I mean, I lived 25 miles away from work. I don't like to live in towns.
It would have been an adventure, even if you'd have got out of your driveway.
Yep.
Yeah.
With Thomas, and Thomas was little.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and at that time I drove a '69 Chrysler. It had rust. It had 3 layers of metal in spots that you could see. I mean, it was a tank.
Right.
It wasn't long after that I got my first SUV.
Right.
And if I was driving with 2 tires on the shoulder, nobody passed me.
Right.
We lived in Amish country, so our shoulders would handle a wagon and hitch
Oh,
wagon.
okay. Yeah.
And you know how big they are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's life in the winter's an adventure. But then then we have tornadoes or high winds.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the weather we've had here this spring, I mean, we've been really fortunate where we live here because it seems like it's went south of us and north of us.
Well, if you watch, we're on a plateau. We hear
Oh,
all
yeah.
about the Ozark Plateau.
The I-44 corridor.
We're on a different plateau, and I was in Walmart during a true tornado warning. I mean, you could watch it. We were all in the back. I hadn't had my knee replaced, so I was on a scooter, so I had a chair, and you could see. I mean, this was a massive storm, and then you could see it just go like this,
Yeah.
right around us, right around.
There
right
was
over
one night. It's been several years ago. In fact, well, it's been more than 20 years ago because we didn't have our house yet. We went down to Cellar because I don't get worried when they say tornado warning for Polk County, but when they say Polk, Hickory, and Dallas,
that's different.
I'm like, okay, areas affected, the town of Polk and Lewisburg, we're going to fucking Cellar.
Yes.
Well, they didn't mention Rimby.
It's right in fucking line. So we're down the Cellar, and it was weird because, it was about duskish. You could just see it was dark. But like right above us was clear. But we're sitting there, and Ann's got this, she says it's not as good anymore as it used to be, but she used to have this real sixth sense about the weather and everything, and knew if it was bad and what we needed to do. And she was sitting there at the door looking, and she had a tear. I'm like, "Are you okay?" She goes, "It's okay now." I said, "How do you know?"
You just know.
She goes, "The birds are singing."
That's.
I'm like, "Oh, well, damn, they are." 5 minutes earlier, there wasn't shit. There was no
Yeah,
sound.
they
There was no crickets. There was no frogs. There was no birds. But then everything picked back up like normal.
And the sixth sense. I mean, I watch the weather, and I mean, I'll have the radar. If storms are bad, I'll have it up on my phone and watching. But most of their tornado warnings just aren't. I mean, they're their Doppler indicated, and it's kind of, I've never had that feeling that it's going to hit us. My first tornado that I remember, I was 5 years old, roughly, and we lived in St. Louis. And there's people that believe that tornadoes don't hit in the fork of a river. I said they do, but I remember.
They also say they don't go across bodies of water, but they do.
But I remember watching the tornadoes. I forget how many there were. We lived in a cement block brick apartment building.
So you were like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah. And then we went to the Ringling Brothers Circus, and there was, I knew that hole had been blown in the arena, whatever it was. I mean, I was 5.
Right.
And you could see this huge area of fresh lumber.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and then teaching Thomas about tornadoes. And one hit Charles City, which is near where we were, Charles City, Iowa. And you could, it was bad. I mean, and I was west of Northwood at the time, and I could see the shelf cloud, and it's kind of, oh, we're going home. But you could tell where it hit. This side of town still had the old houses, the Victorians, and this was totally new. And he noticed it at 5 or 6 years old. I said, "What do you see here?" And he looked, and he says, "Tornado went through, huh?"
There was one, I want to say it was 2003, 2002. You can probably search it, Google search it or whatever. It wiped out Stockton, the town of Stockton. It was an EF4. It stayed on the ground from the other side of Stockton all the way through a mile north of here, all the way to the other side of Tunis.
That's highly unusual.
It stayed on the ground. It was wild because you could go down 64 to Pittsburgh, little ways down there, quarter-mile swath, wiped out. You go down Double H Highway,
Another swath,
wiped out. 65 between Lewisburg and Urbana, wiped out. It came in just south of Tunis on 73, wiped out. And I didn't realize it stayed on the ground. I knew about the storm because we were watching a movie. We were still down at Mom's, didn't have our house yet. And Marshall and his girlfriend was over, and we were watching a movie. And I kept hearing something because my back was against this west wall.
Yeah.
I kept hearing something. And after the movie was over, we flipped over the regular channels like, oh shit, we need to go to cellar. Well, apparently it already went by. Because it had the surround sound on and
oh yeah, you're
all
not
that
hear
shit.
it.
You know, of course we didn't have cell phones that alerted us to storms back then. And we're like, holy shit. And then we went on a drive and it's like, whoa, that was too fucking close. But then here just a couple of years ago, KY3 or Color 10 does their storm deals. They go around, you know, and show you what could happen with the storm and everything. But they were talking about the tornadoes in history, and they were talking about that one in particular, and that's when I found out that son of a bitch stayed on the ground from Stockton all the way over through here. And if you go to Stockton, because Ann worked for Superior Gearbox, and their main company is in Stockton, where they make all the gears and everything, and then they assemble them in Buffalo. They got all the CNC machines and everything in Stockton. Well, it was okay, but downtown Stockton was wiped smooth out. And you go over there now, and you can tell, because it's, like you say, new buildings, a few old buildings that didn't get wiped out.
My science teacher, when I was in 5th grade, talked about because he went to college at Northwestern, and he talked about being on the 3rd floor of his dorm, and he had the big headphones on, doing homework, and he felt the building shake for a few minutes, and he's like, whoa. And he went back in to doing his work. Come to find out, tornado went right by the dorm, wiped out that side of the street, didn't do anything to his. And that's where they found the blade of straw
Stuck
through
in the
that tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, because we were doing a whole thing on natural occurrences and natural disasters and how strong they are. Because growing up in Illinois, it was always like, oh, we've got a tornado warning or tornado touchdown. Everybody to the basement. And in Illinois, everybody had a basement. And it was like, oh, no big deal. Because hardly anybody didn't have a finished basement.
So you just went down there and watched TV. And,
Yeah. Yeah, or that was where everybody's hanging out.
Right.
Finished or not.
Yeah, it's where the beer's at.
Right.
On that note, because I know we've got a lot more to cover, but I want you all to come back for part 2. It will be on soon, but on that note, you have just watched another episode of Stu Him Productions Presents
J&M, solve the world. I have been James.
And I have been Matt. And on behalf of Kathy, you keep on fisting the gold 1 foot in the gutter. And we will be seeing you.
Peace.